conversation this morning, you would have received a great deal of information, a great deal of enlightenment about research findings and reports, as well as the utilization of such findings. Let's go back to Professor Salako, the CEO of the Medical Research Institute in Lagos. Professor Salako, as I said, you laid the framework or the foundation for this conversation with the guideposts that you provided. And those guideposts perhaps have been breached or perhaps further elaborated upon or fairly populated within the parameters that you indicated. I just want to leave the floor open for you to respond to issues you consider relevant at this time in the conversation.
Thank you very much. You see, it's important to put research governance in proper perspective in relation to its role in the use of research results. And I need to say also that for health research in particular, government actually has committees responsible for oversight on research established by law. The Health Act that was recently reviewed created two committees: the National Health Research Ethics Committee, which looks into research integrity in terms of approval, the consent, the necessary elements that researchers need to fulfill before the projects are approved. And this is what creates standards for research in any country, so that when the results are out, they can't be monitored and then seen as a research result that has come out with integrity. So as the distinguished senator was saying, we have a process for that, very well established. And then there's also a National Health Research Committee, which also advises the Honorable Minister on creating research priorities and policy. I must also say that we do have research priorities and policies created. It's recently been reviewed in 2022 and will soon be published. But the challenges are the priorities are not well disseminated to researchers in the universities. But this time around, once we have the final copies, we will be doing that, so that researchers within the Nigerian research ecosystem will know which area of research they need to focus on. This is priority areas set by government. And so results of such research will be very useful and interesting to policymakers in Nigeria, because the agendas have been set by them. And of course, the agendas were also set not just by the policymakers in the ministry alone, by international communities who are members of that the small stakeholder group that put this together. The university researchers in Nigerian institutes all came together to form that policy. Now, what is important that I want the distinguished senator to take a second look at is the issue of funding. There is no way we are going to talk about funding without talking about government, because government everywhere in the world funds research, and the researchers in such countries are able to access funding that address the research priorities that such countries have set up. In our own case, we do have priorities set, but we do not have funding particularly released for such priorities. And that is why researchers cannot conduct transitional research that will lead into policy brief or lead into product development. Even when we generate new knowledge, they are not very, very standard that you could put into practice. For example, we talk about clinical trials. Clinical trials require large amount of money. Again, I agree that government cannot support clinical trials. This is business. And the other aspect of research, use of research results, is for us researchers to be able to convince the private sector, the business in health research. The fact that products can be developed, the the fact that spin-off companies can arise and people can get jobs and companies can produce this and sell them. The economy in research needs to be well focused on for private sector to be able to put funding in research and then for them to be able to use these research results. So these are areas that we must allow government to support in terms of providing funding. We have recently asked for creation of Nigerian Medical Research Council to support and fund health research in Nigeria. Because as we speak, there is none. What we have funding research generally in Nigeria is TET fund. TET fund is limited only to tertiary institutes, the universities. The research institutes are not able to access that fund. And of course, what TET fund is getting is okay, but not enough for research in Nigeria generally. But we must also thank government, at least they are putting something there. But we needed a specific funding for health research in Nigeria. So we hope that the House will support the creation of that council so that health researchers in Nigeria can be able to face the research priorities that have been set by the Federal Ministry of Health and address our health challenges within that space. Now, the other bit that I would like to mention is that when researchers in Nigeria are able to come up with products, we require political support, policies that will allow Nigerians to use those research results. Don't forget that most of the things that we produce have to compete with the ones that are coming from other countries, which have been in market for many years. And people have used to this. They may not want to use a new one. So we need some little policy support, even though we expect that validation would have been done and that it would have been compared to gold standard and seem to work as much as those ones or even better than them. But the fact that they are just coming to the market, they have to compete. And for us to get them used in our country, we need government policy to support this. This is something that is lacking. In our situation here, we have created diagnostic kits, about 5 or so of them. We've been able to sell one out during the COVID era. We needed government to support us to say that since these have been found to be very useful and have been validated and has been seen to work as gold standard, then Nigerian hospitals and laboratories should be advised to use them. This is something that has to be done through our regulatory agency. And therefore, regulatory agencies also have to look at how best they can assist such new products to get registered without really flouting the standard that has been created. But we needed to get them to support this. Otherwise, we are going to be creating research products that will not see the light of the day. They will not be able to compete very well in the market because we are already used to the standards that are being brought from outside the country. So these are the areas I believe government can support researchers to be able to move things forward so we can begin to use what we produce. That is a step that's needed to be taken by government. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Babatunde Salako. We